Thank you. This discussion item really deals with two values critically important to both the United States and a great democracy as well as UC. One is the value of First Amendment and the ability to have free speech, but the other is the value to protect our students or our citizens against hate and intimidation. Both are equally important. And drawing the line between one and the other is not something new. It's challenging, but it's certainly been done all the way to the Supreme Court on any number of examples. Stating we support and are passionate about supporting the right, especially with academic freedom in an institute like UC, to express your points of view, regardless of whatever those political points of view are, regardless if it agrees with any one of us. But we equally feel it's important to make sure that every one of our students, whatever their race, religion, sexual orientation, or origin are, do not feel intimidated against based on that identity. When we hear lines of students coming forth and giving us examples of swastikas on Jewish fraternities, on challenging a Jewish student at UCLA's qualifications to serve on a council just as a result of her religious identity, of statements that Hitler was right. I hope that I'm not the only one feeling chilled about that and feeling the need for us as leaders of UC to make a statement and tell those students we hear you and that is not acceptable. I agree with Norm. Please save that because, you know, this is about being fair and equal. And we know that there's been a raging political debate by students on campuses over Palestinian-Israel issue, the boycott and divestment of Israel. And when we are passionately supporting the ability to free speech over passionate, divisive political issues, sometimes that leads to individual acts of intimidation and hate that are not acceptable. And when that happens, it is very important for us to tell the students to whom that is happening that we hear you and it is not acceptable. If a political debate was raging on campuses that led to me sitting here and listening to students that are Muslims coming forth and saying hate and intimidation acts against them, gay students coming forth and telling us of hates and intimidation acts against them, Christian students, any students based on their race, religion, national origin, or sexual orientation, I would feel equally upset, equally chilled, and equally determined as a leader of UC to let that particular student group know we hear you. And this statement doesn't do that. And while I believe it is important for us to restate as often as we can our position on tolerance, our position on supporting First Amendment and academic freedom, but also our position on zero tolerance of acts of hate and intimidation to any group of our students. The broad statement is fine, but in this case, the political debates that have been happening, God bless free speech that we support, have led to many acts against one particular group of students that we're hearing about in this instance, and that is Jewish students. And this statement doesn't say to those Jewish students, we hear you. And there is definitely a way to craft a statement that restates our principles both of free speech and protecting every group, every individual student, regardless of what group of their sexual orientation, race, religion, national origin is, from intimidation, while also specifically saying, we know what's going on. We know that there's been a rash recently of acts of intimidation and hate that are making our Jewish students feel uncomfortable, and we need to recognize that.
Thank you, Regent Reiss.